Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, her final stop in Indy, how that's pushing Indiana tourism dollars to record levels. Plus,
the legacy lives on in Indiana for the Olympic swim trials pool. We'll tell you where it's headed coming up in the Business of Health.
And
this is, and always has been, and will be, the greatest spectacle in racing.
Now that the dust has settled, we go inside the numbers and strategy behind IndyCar's huge new TV deal with Fox Sports. Inside Indiana Business is next.
From Indiana's business news leader, this is IBJ Media's Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick, presented by Elevate Ventures, Indiana University, and Liuna.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick, coming to you this week from just outside the Indiana Convention Center in downtown Indianapolis, really the heart of the convention campus in the city, what local officials bill as the most connected campus in the United States. Hosting this week another big event, the U.S. Olympic team swimming trials, estimated impact $100 million. It's a prime example of the economic impact of the tourism industry on Indianapolis and Indiana. Just check out some of these numbers. It's estimated that conventions and events attract more than 30 million visitors to the city annually, with an economic impact of $5.8 billion. But those numbers were pre-pandemic. The pandemic decimated the industry. Conventions and events were canceled, restaurants and hotels shuttered, workers lost their jobs. But new numbers just released paint a picture of an industry on the comeback, and one that is perhaps all the way back and then some. In 2019, pre-COVID, Indy hosted 683 conventions. In 2021, that number plummeted to just 264. But this year, through just the first 6 months of the year, Indy has hosted 402 conventions, and officials say is on track to host more than 700 by the end of the year. Hotel occupancy is up beyond pre-COVID levels as well. In fact, Visit Indy's Chris Gall tells me 2024 could turn out to be the busiest year in Indy tourism history.
Does the pandemic and all those challenges seem like a long time ago?
It does. It feels anew.
For Visit Indy's Senior Vice President Chris Gall, this is a tipping point for the city's nearly $6 billion tourism industry. 2 years removed from the dark days and uncertainty of the pandemic, Indy on the cusp of record tourism numbers.
All of our metrics are up. Hotel occupancy, the number of conventions, the sheer volume of conventions, the size and magnitude and caliber of conventions and meetings and events. 2024 will be a record-setting year for Indy tourism in the history of Indy tourism, because of events like swimming, because of events like the NBA All-Star Game, Taylor Swift, all the conventions that are coming into our city, all the leisure visitors coming to our city. So there's a sense of pride that we have recovered, and when we look back on those darker days, there's a sense of pride that we've arrived here today. You'll walk seamlessly across the skywalk, and you'll drop in, so if it's inclement weather, you don't have to go outside. And that's our competitive edge, that we eliminate weather from the equation.
An equation that is about to change. After the largest concrete pour in Indianapolis history, the 37-story Signia by Hilton Hotel will soon begin rising from the ground, part of a more than $700 million expansion of the Indiana Convention Center. When it opens in 2026, Indy will have 13 hotels and 5,500 rooms connected by Skywalk. Visit Indy says it has secured more than $1 billion in new business since the hotel groundbreaking, including organizations that have been giving the city the cold shoulder.
American Legion, an international gathering that had not been here since 2019. A decade later, in 2029, said yes to Indianapolis. They're coming back. We have Future Business Leaders of America, had never met here. Because of this project, they said yes to Indianapolis. We have been able to retain events like DCI and Gen Con, both threatening to leave because they were outgrowing our city, literally. Alcoholics Anonymous, we were 0 for 5. They said no to Indianapolis, but not for this project and this expansion. They said yes. 70,000 visitors, international visitors, will come here for that major convention. That's one of many we've been able to steer towards Indianapolis because of the dust and debris across the street.
Gall says the numbers and construction activity represent a tipping point for the tourism sector, with the potential for many more projects in the pipeline.
We have just enough cranes in the air to breed confidence by meeting executives who are saying, what's happening in Indianapolis? We heard about the All-Star game. We're hearing about swimming on national TV. We know about Taylor Swift. This dust and debris tells us Indianapolis is ascending. We want to come see what others are talking about. And so we're at this tipping point, this reflection and inflection point where meeting executives are racing into the city. They're seeing events like swimming and they're going, something's happening here, we want to be part of it. So now that the project is, the foundation is literally laid for Pan Am Plaza with the concrete pour, now we're moving vertically. We have sales offices in this existing tower that we can peer out over the project and say, here's how it's changing our city's skyline. And that's very, very impactful for people trying to see what Indianapolis will look like into the future.
And another element contributing to Indy's tourism bottom line, Airbnb and VRBO rentals. They're up, way up.
Welcome to the acoustic set.
A big driving force, Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour will be wrapping up in Indy in November. Short-term rentals for that month are up a whopping 163% over last year. And get this, outside of the Swift economic impact, Airbnb and VRBO rentals are up 27% overall over 2023. Coming up next, the big business of motorsports in Indiana. We go inside the numbers and economic impact of IndyCar's blockbuster new TV deal with Fox Sports. Stay with us.
That was a true battle, the last 5 laps.
Well, if Joseph Newgarden takes an unprecedented third straight Indy 500 next year, it will be broadcast on a new television network. Numbers coming into focus now in the blockbuster TV deal that IndyCar has just signed with Fox Sports. Fox winning the rights to all races on the IndyCar series, including, of course, the Indy 500 beginning in 2025. Financial terms have not been disclosed, but IndyCar was on record as saying it expected to get a bump from its rights deal with NBC, which was valued at around $20 million in gross revenue. The key to the deal, Fox committing to air all IndyCar races on broadcast TV, not sharing it with other platforms like NBC did with Peacock. IndyCar CEO Mark Miles tells our partners at Fox 59 it is a huge opportunity for the sport and for Indianapolis.
It's a huge, massive, really, increase in our network exposure, which means bigger audiences. So it's more than a 50% increase in the number of hours that will be on network compared to this year. And that will translate into viewership.
Well, racing is certainly a passion for Hoosiers, perhaps second only to the state's other sports passion and economic driver, basketball. One of the most iconic voices to call games over the past 50 years, Indiana University broadcaster Don Fisher. He's been the voice of the Hoosiers for over a half century, in the booth for both IU football and basketball.
In the summer of '81, I get a phone call. It's from Bob Knight. And when he wanted something, he called me Fisho. He goes, Fisho, what do you think about us doing a talk show? I went, Coach, I've asked you about this about 5 times over the last several years. You didn't want to do it. He says, well, let's talk to your general manager and see how much he'll pay me.
And you can check out my nearly hour-long conversation with the voice of IU, Don Fisher, as we launch Season 4 of the Business and Beyond podcast. You can check it out at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I think you'll find it definitely worth a listen. One more sports economic development in the pipeline in Indianapolis. A new $110 million on-campus arena for IU Indianapolis has been approved by the school's Board of Trustees. The IU Indianapolis Athletic Center will have room for 4,500 spectators. Some of the seats will be retractable, allowing for flexibility to host high school and other collegiate events. IU President Pam Whitten calls the project transformative. Well, coming up next, Grease is the word in southern Indiana. We'll have details on expansion plans in Corydon by a big name in the oil industry, plus other business news making headlines around Indiana.
Here's what's making news around Indiana. Brought to you by the Indiana Association of Realtors. Indiana's 21,000 realtors. The neighbors you know, the experts you can count on.
Well, Gary, we begin in the orthopedic capital of the world, where Warsaw-based OrthoWorks awarded $30 million to help retain and attract talent. CEO Bob Vitu says a committee has spent most of the last year developing a plan for the funding, which includes 3 workforce housing projects, all located in Warsaw. The nonprofit says housing is critical for not only the employees, but the families who move with them. The Indiana Container Initiative is now working to support the development of multiple international container terminals throughout the state. Indiana has 3 ports in Jeffersonville, Burns Harbor, and Mount Vernon. They currently do not handle container shipments. The initiative designed to pursue establishing those facilities at the ports and inland locations across the state. In southern Indiana, Lucas Oil has cut the ribbon on a new 25,000 square foot production area. The space includes research and development labs as well as blending and production lines. The company says this launch will help address a national grease shortage. The Gary Chicago International Airport broke ground this week on a new $12 million hangar. Wingtip Aviation is consolidating to GCIA and will operate under a 20-year lease. The 47,000 square foot hangar will be owned and constructed by the airport. The new hangar expected to open in May 2025.
Time now for our Eye on Education, brought to you by PNC
Here we are
Bank.
in downtown Indianapolis at the premier event in the state of Indiana, the U.S. Olympic Swim Trials, where there's also a big education component going on here. Check this out. He's right there. Go! Oh, there's pretty Pete! Shaking your head wondering just what exactly it is that I'm doing? Only qualifying for a spot on the U.S. Olympic swim team? Well, sort of. A team of 2 students and 2 professors created the Purdue USA Swimming Live VR experience.
They came to this with this proposal at the 2nd week of May for us to make this video game.
Oh, wow.
It just took a lot of hours and hard work. And then your thumb, I'm going to put it on the A button, and when it reaches 0, you should see the timer. And if you look down, you'll see your swimmer. And you hit A, and the faster you hit A, the faster you swim. We made this game in 4 weeks, which is kind of unheard of when it comes to game development.
Typically, how long does a project like this take?
6 months to a year. We've got some really talented students.
And the VR game set up on Georgia Street is also a way to grab the attention of potential students, especially with the launch of Purdue University in Indianapolis in July.
We like to think that the virtual reality can be a bit of a recruitment tool and open the door and let people know that, hey, Purdue University has these programs in Indianapolis and in West Lafayette where you can be a video game designer if you want to do that. It's a really exciting time for a lot of really exciting programs. I think it'll be a seismic change for downtown to create a Boilermaker pipeline of talent right here into the heart of central Indiana, where the business is, where the innovation is, where the employers are. That's what we want to do at Purdue. We produce all of these STEM undergraduates, the highest enrollment of STEM undergraduates in the entire country, and we want to give them access to employers right here in Indiana's capital city.
Seriously, this is mind-blowing. I mean, I've been transported to like another universe.
Yeah.
Definitely an awesome way to introduce the masses to virtual reality. And speaking of VR, Purdue's virtual reality program will officially move to Purdue in Indianapolis, which opens starting July 1st. Gary, back to you.
Amazing technology. Thanks very much, Mary Rachel. Well, coming up next, the U.S. Olympic swim trials are wrapping up. So what happens to those amazing pools that were constructed inside Lucas Oil Stadium? Well, one is headed to an Indiana city for an important use. We'll have details next.
Definitely on the table, right? So for sure, I think we've set a new bar, right? Going to an NFL stadium. And again, we went to Omaha in 2008 for the first time, but in the first year it didn't sell out, so it took some time to build. So certainly, I think Indianapolis certainly deserves another shot.
And execute they did, both inside and outside the pool. In the pool, multiple records were set. Some eye-popping numbers outside of the pool as well. The first night of the trials, a world record for swimming attendance, with nearly 21,000 fans, breaking the previous record of about 16,000 set during the Rio Olympics. And the nearly 18,000 in attendance for Sunday's prelims, also a record. And USA Swimming tells us opening day sales of merchandise was more than twice its best day ever. Well, you really can't get enough of this video. Building a swimming pool inside an NFL stadium is no small feat. It's never been done before. It took 200 workers over 4 weeks to transform the home of the Indianapolis Colts into the world's largest indoor swimming pool. How much water did it take? Nearly 2 million gallons. So what happens to the pool when the U.S. Olympic swim trials come to an end? Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has the answer.
Thanks, Gary. The competition pool behind me will be disassembled, loaded onto 4 semis, and trucked to Fort Wayne, where it will be the main attraction at a new community wellness center. Not only is it just cooler to get the Olympic trials pool, it's also cheaper to move this one than to build a new one.
Brought some pool water from home before we bring this pool home. All right.
The excitement is overflowing for Fort Wayne, and not just for these local young swimmers who need more space for their sport, but also for the health of the community. The 50-meter competition pool will anchor a new aquatics and wellness facility. Plans call for a second, smaller pool for swim lessons for hundreds of kids who are currently turned away due to lack of space, and for aqua fitness and aqua therapy.
There's some people maybe in the area doing them right now, but they rent space from like hotel pools. I mean, there's no place to do it.
Nonprofit Fort Wayne Swim and Wellness has already paid for the Olympic trials pool to come to their city and is now leading the charge to raise the rest of the money to build the wellness center. In all, about a $50 million project.
We know we've got a big lift and a lot of work ahead of us, but we feel really confident we're going to get this thing off the ground and make it happen.
The nonprofit says the region has far outgrown its pool space. Greater Indianapolis has 16 50-meter pools. Fort Wayne only has 1, and it's used by 9 high schools. A Purdue University Fort Wayne study says the Wellness Center would generate a $20 million economic impact annually, bringing visitors to the area for competitions that would boost local hotels and restaurants.
Fort Wayne just does not know what it's missing out on right now. We don't have a facility to be able to host major swim and dive competitions, whether it's club, high school, collegiate. It's untapped right now.
A big win for athletes and events. The Olympic trials pool is also being touted as the fastest pool in North America. But what exactly does that mean?
There's factors that go into that, whether it's the flow, the way the water returns into the pool and where those inlets are. It's the width of the lanes. They've got wider lanes. It's the guttering system that dissipates the waves. It's the depth of the pool.
The nonprofit is exploring partnerships with local companies or naming rights for the center, expected to open by 2027 and make big waves in the region.
That allure, that attraction of having that Olympic trial pool with the Olympic trial starting blocks and all the insignias and logos and everything, it's pretty exciting for everyone here in Fort Wayne.
A local business owner in Fort Wayne volunteered his warehouse space to store the pool until it can be assembled at the new Wellness Center. Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. A big pool will be headed up I-69 to Fort Wayne. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's edition of Inside Indiana Business from downtown Indianapolis. As we leave you this week, some images of downtown from our chief photographer, Clint Ehrbacher. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.